Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Beacon of Light radio show, and you are listening to Maria Morales and on Beacon of Light Radio, and it is 6 o'clock here on my side of the coast here in the United States, and 9 o'clock p.m. on the East Coast, and somewhere in the Central Coast it is 8 p.m. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me this evening and taking the time out to spend a little time with me this evening. And I have a very special guest that I would love to introduce to you. And I am so excited about her coming onto the show this evening. I wanted to share with you that this has been kind of a tough week, so I'm just getting off of being sick in the last couple of days. And then up until the last half an hour, it's been a little bit hectic trying to arrange getting together with our producer Charity and with my guest Lacey. So everything has been moving. There's been a lot of movement, and a lot of that has to probably is happening as a result of what's happening this evening. It is a new moon, and it is what they call a black moon, which happens like once every 32 years. And a black moon is when they say there is two new moons in 1 month. This is a period or an evening for a lot of activity and movements and shifts. And I know that we have all been feeling that. And we were discussing that a little bit earlier, how there's been a lot of activity and energy in the atmosphere. And I know you've been feeling that, as I have been also. I want to go ahead and just go into my introduction with my friend, Lacey Camp. She is a very special lady. Lacey Camp is a spiritual medium and a teacher. She connects you with spirit through angels, guides, loved ones who are deceased, and your living and deceased pets. She's a teacher locally in her town in Texas, and she teaches online on the internet. She's also available for public speaking. I had the pleasure of interviewing Lacey for her first radio show. Her and I connected on Monday, and we had a nice long conversation, and she's a delightful, humble, and very gifted person, and I am so honored to have her as one of my friends. I came across meeting Lacey through a tarot class online, and after that class, we connected with the other students in the class and have developed a friendship on Facebook and on the internet, and kind of kept in touch with each other and supported one another in all our endeavors. And I've been so amazed and impressed with the growth and knowing of Lacey's background, how she has just grown and developed this past year. So when I had this program, I knew I wanted her to come on as a guest. And as I said, I am delighted that Lacey is on with me this evening, as everybody who is listening, all our friends and family, will be delighted to hear her story and share this evening with me. I do want to tell you that if you are in the chat room is a closed group, so you have to, if you'd like to come in on the chat room and make any comments, you have to ask to join. If you are a member of it, you're able to come onto the Facebook page on Beacon of Light Radio Chat, and you're able to participate in the chat room with any questions. We will be taking calls. However, Lacey will not be doing readings, but as we're speaking, if there's any questions you have, you can call in. The number for the call-in number is 323-902-5497. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm deviating from what I was going to do originally. I think what I'd like to do is go ahead and bring Lacey on. And Lacey, come on, please. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on, Lacey. Thank you for being my guest. I'm honored to that you're able to share your first interview with me this evening. So, Lacey, I kind of described a little bit of what you do, and one of the things that when we had discussed in our earlier conversations, I wanted you to bring me your story. Tell us how long you have have been doing the work that you do and your first experience with mediumship and reading.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Maria. First, let me just tell you what a pleasure it is for me to be on with you tonight. We've known each other so long, and it's just a pleasure for me to watch you as well. I have been seeing spirit since I was a really, really little girl.
Mhm.
But at that time, I didn't know what to do with it. It scared me to death. I'm from a real traditionally religious family,
Mhm.
and nobody knew what to do when I would say, "Oh, I'm seeing this." There was nothing anybody knew to do about it. And so both my sister and I see spirit, and we talked about it for several years until we were told to please quit talking about it because everybody thought we were nuts. So, of course, we shut up, and I just kind of turned the light off, although I would continue to see things for years. And then many years ago, we lost our 15-year-old. And when
Mhm.
we lost our 15-year-old, my sister started talking about how Trisha was visiting her. And that devastated me because she wasn't visiting me. And
Yes.
that's when I decided, okay, I didn't care whether I fit in with anybody else. It was time for me to be able to move forward in my growth and figure out how to connect with my daughter. And that's really what started me working hard on a daily basis, learning how to connect with spirit.
Mhm. Yes. Okay. And so, how old were you about that time? And it's both you and your sister.
Right,
Stop.
except my sister's never developed it more like I have. But I lost Trisha in my 30s and started connecting with Trisha in like my late 40s, early 50s. And finally, just I read everything I could get my hands on. I
Mhm.
tried everything I could think of. And again, it was so much of it was fear based with me because I had to unlearn so much of what I knew. In my religious background. And I finally started pushing past that, and I started every day for 30 minutes I would ask Trisha to come and speak to me, and she didn't. And this went on for a couple of weeks, and then finally one night she came to me and she woke me up. And
Oh.
when she woke me up and we were able to talk, quite literally within 2 weeks after that, I started having dead people coming to me all the time to bring me
Wow.
messages for their loved ones and people that I already knew. And
Mhm.
so it just exploded from there. It went crazy. I just kept getting visits from dead people, and finally got to the point that I realized I was doing it so much that I needed to only do this. And that's when I just started working full time doing this.
Did you have a private practice that that you had developed when you had started, when you had started all of this at that time? Did you go into private practice or
Yes.
you did? Okay.
Yes, I did, because it was to the point
Mhm.
that I was getting so many messages and everything, and it was taking a lot of time. And I really, after a lot of meditation and prayer, I really feel called by God to go into this. And I feel like I come at it from a unique background in that I think so many of us grew up with traditional religion, and we think
Yeah.
that what we're doing now, well,
Yeah.
not that we think it, but society, thinks that we don't fit into the norm. And I've felt really, really called to teach people that these abilities were given us by our Creator, that there's nothing wrong with them, and that our Creator has never fit into the tiny box that we've tried to put him in. And so that's when I even began teaching, because I realized, I looked everywhere for somebody like me. And there
Mhm.
were some people out there, but I couldn't afford them.
Right.
And so it's just kind of led me down a whole avenue I never would have thought that I would be going into, but I'm here now and thrilled to pieces.
And you've done some really amazing work with your mediumship. And tell us a little bit about how you read people. And we talked a little bit about your team.
Yes. Okay.
And
All right. Well, I have and we are all surrounded by a spiritual
Yes.
support team, from spirit guides to angels to animal guides, all kinds. And when I first started connecting, after I connected with Trisha, I connected with my guardian angel. And my guardian angel for me is everything. I mean, he has opened the door for me in every way possible. And after that, I met my protection guide. And once I started meeting both of them, it just seemed like the more, like when I wanted to start doing more mediumship, and I really wanted to be sure I was accurate and wanted to be discerning, I asked for help, and I was given a mediumship angel. And he sits in with me on every reading I do. I don't do a reading without my mediumship angel. Even when I'm speaking with pets, I still always call him in first. And basically, when I do a mediumship reading for anyone, I first ask in their guides or angels, and I just see who comes forward, and that's who I start working with. And many times during a reading, I'll speak to a few beings, who have a message for the person that I'm reading for. It just depends what they're asking and how that's going. But I do work with a spiritual support team on a daily basis, and that's what I teach my students, is how to connect with their own team. I had another professional ask me recently, why would you teach people to do what you do? You're going to go out of business.
Yes.
And I said, well, wouldn't that be the greatest thing in the world, that everybody was so enlightened that I would be put out of business, God willing.
Yes.
But B, why should you have to go through me to meet your spiritual support team if you're interested? Now, a lot of people aren't interested, and those are the ones who, would just ask me to do a reading for them. But for those who are interested, what a magnificent thing to be able to connect on your own on a daily basis with your spiritual support team. It just opens your whole life up.
I agree. I think that as someone who does intuitive work, I find it fascinating, like as when you told me that I have a team. And for me, that's really encouraging. And I want to know more about that. And how did you come about to know your team, if my ask?
Well, I connected with my guardian angel. And once I connected with my guardian angel, that's really what opened the door for me. But I will tell you, I've had students connect with a different being besides their guardian angel. It might have been a totally different kind of angel or guide, who then introduced them to the rest of their team too. And also, I would feel the different energies in the room, and I would recognize it, just like if it was a voice or anything like that. And I would recognize it was different, and I would ask who they were and ask them to identify themselves. And I mean, we all have everything from confidence guides to life guides.
I love that.
Love guides. I mean, if people understood how surrounded they were at all times, I have not met anyone who had any less than at least 7 full-time team members that were always there for them. But then you also have angels and guides that migrate through your life when you need them. They'll just come through as you need them. And I'll use myself as an example.
Okay.
This is really, I can't believe I'm telling you this, but I'm going to tell you.
I love it.
I was real nervous about this radio show.
Yeah.
And I had a confidence guide come forward. And so I've been working with my confidence guide for a few weeks. And he's just been wonderful for me because he helps me put things in perspective. But I'm not special. That's available to all of us.
That's really wonderful to hear that. I wish I could have had that confidence guide a little bit earlier this afternoon, because, as I said, everything was like in disarray for me. But having you on has been very calming. So I appreciate your energy there.
Good.
We talked a little bit about the guides, and then we also talked a little bit about the guides that you've had. Are those ever guides that have passed over, that from previous lives or from other lifetimes? We talk a little bit about that and how that has, what your experience has been with that?
Okay, my experience for me and for everything that I know is that every person ever created has a guardian angel. And that's whether you believe in God, as I'll call him God, or whoever you believe in, everyone has a guardian angel, and that guardian angel is with you in every lifetime you have. So since the time that I was created, I've had the same guardian angel in every lifetime, which is magnificent because his counsel is so helpful to me because he knows me deeper than anyone except for God. And so that's very helpful. Other than that, all of my guides or angels have been assigned to me this lifetime because we each have a different journey each time that we're here. And when I say guides, let me just clarify. What I call a spirit guide is someone who had been a human. They have ascended. And this is what they have chosen to do now. That they're spending my lifetime with me to help me achieve my goals. Whether I know them on the other side, I don't know. I don't know them here. They're new to me here. But it is my understanding, at least for me personally and for those that I've read for, I only know of a couple other people who have had guides that have gone from different lifetime to different lifetime. And I obviously don't know everything, but just in my experience, besides my guardian angel, everyone else for me is new.
I see. And tell me a little bit about all your other abilities that came to you with the animal readings.
Oh, okay. Well, besides speaking to angels and guides, I also obviously speak to deceased loved ones. And a while back, I will be really honest with you. I never believed in animal communication before I learned how. I just thought, hey, somebody could make something up, and I don't mean that as negative, but honestly, I just had a really hard time believing that.
Yeah.
And so I started taking animal communication classes and was stunned immediately at the energy of an animal. And once I started communicating, it's one thing to say, oh, I communicated with my pets, because your pets, you've had your pets. But once I started reading other people's pets just by pictures and really realizing I was getting very accurate details, and it was like, holy smokes, this is really real. It really is real, and it is a big part of my practice. My volunteer work centers around rescue groups, and I have one rescue group in particular that I read for, and it really helps them in the placement of their animals because I'm able to find out quickly. Does this dog like cats? Does this dog like other animals? Do they like children? And it just makes a big difference. But it also helps my clients with their living pets because I can talk to them about behavioral problems. And so that's been a fascinating aspect of my work I never saw coming when I started. But communicating with pets is just one of the most exciting things that I do.
When you're communicating with pets, for me, I find it fascinating. Is it words? Is it the energy? How does that come to you?
Usually it's words, but sometimes it's pictures. When I'm talking to an animal, they read my mind too. So I have to be in a really good place when I start, because especially if it's a behavior problem, because I don't need to go into this judgmental at all. I just need to talk to the animal about, why are you doing this? Can you explain this to me? And as long as I go in and I'm not judgmental, then they feel free enough to discuss it with me. But it's quite interesting because especially on rescues, there's been many times I've asked some of the rescues their history, that someone would want to know. And we have rescue pets too, and we want to know their history. And many times they'll show me in pictures because it's faster, or maybe it's just sad and they really don't want to use the words, so they'll show me a picture and I'll see right away. But I really have to honor their spirit and their light, because animals' energy is way higher than our energy. They are
about that.
Yes, they their energy is so much higher, and actually they are far easier for me to connect to than a deceased person, which is pretty amazing.
And why is that? Because of the animals' souls at a much higher level. They're so pure in love. Is that why?
That's mostly it, and also they don't have an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
There is no agenda with an animal. I mean, animals don't hold grudges. They wake up
Mm-hmm.
every day, and every day's a new day. And so it's so different. They don't carry baggage. Like even some of the most horrific animal abuse cases that I've ever
Yeah.
seen, when I go to speak to the animal,
Yeah.
yes, it happened, but that's not what they concentrate on. They concentrate on what's happening today. And so it's a very different read than it
Mm-hmm.
would be even a deceased person who is ascended. They usually many times want to apologize to their loved one, or they want to
Mm-hmm.
straighten, they want to clarify
Right.
something that happened while they were alive,
Mm.
and that's certainly admirable and understandable. But animals are just, they're just in a different place, and that's why it's fascinating to talk to them. And I even talk to wild animals, and
That's
that is very, very wonderful, and it's exciting and fun to be able to do that as well.
So how does that differ from talking to a wild animal like a bird or a wild wolf, and one that's a domesticated animal like your dogs? How is that different?
It is very, very different. I have found that the wild animals that I've spoken to, and you can see them on my blog because I put up my wild animal readings for the world
Yes.
to enjoy. But it is very interesting because most wild animals seem to be much older souls.
Mhm.
And I believe that's probably part of surviving, in the wild and everything. But they usually have just huge messages. For example, I'm
Mhm.
going to use elephant.
Yeah.
When I speak with a species, I always ask to speak to the collective representative of that species first,
Mhm.
and that is usually, oh my goodness, they have so much wisdom. I mean, I learn something every time, and then after I talk to the collective species representative, then I am led to speak to one on Earth, and there's no telling where that might be on
Uh-huh.
Earth or who that might be. And then that's always a very different reading because they're not speaking for their species, they're speaking for themselves. And they usually have a real different message. But they're usually, it just feels to me they're much older souls. I talk to some dogs that are very old souls, and I've talked
Mhm.
to some cats that are very old souls, but I don't encounter them regularly the way I do with wild animals.
I see. So, you and I talked a little bit about uh, having you as an animal psychic is very helpful for when we have a loved pet that
Mhm.
is at the end stage, and you're able to communicate with them and help us to understand what their journey is, because it can be very difficult, because
Mhm.
in most cases when your pet is ill, and you can't communicate with them, you see how difficult it is for them, in in their circumstances, that they're in pain, and you want to do everything you can to make them as comfortable as possible, and to so that they live longer. How
Right.
has ca- Tell me about an experience where you were able to help a family that had to go through that,
Okay.
or an example of that.
Okay, actually, I just did that recently.
Mhm.
We had a beautiful dog who was at the end stages of his life, and he had been in a great deal of pain, a lot of heart problems and leg problems. And the family was to the point that, they had to decide what's the best thing for the dog, not what's the best thing for the family,
Yes.
what's kinder for the dog, and what kind of quality of life for this dog. Well, I had already been reading this animal for a couple of years, and so we had seen this decline. It was real obvious, and I was able to talk to him about 4 days before he died, and he was just letting the family know, everything was fine. He's
Yeah,
fine. And the thing about animals is animals understand the cycle of life.
they do.
We're the ones who don't.
Right.
They understand it, and they understand that everyone is going to die. And that sounds like a funny thing to say because we should all get that, but human beings fight that a lot.
Hmm.
Animals do not. Animals
Hmm.
don't fight it. Animals recognize it. And he was just to the point that his pain was to the point he did
Hmm.
not want to go on.
Hmm.
And so he didn't want any more medicine. He didn't want anything else. And he was able to tell me that, and I was able to tell them, and they were able to help him die with grace. And it was a big deal. And then, not long, I mean, like the day after he died, I
Yeah.
did a check-in reading for them.
Uh-huh.
And he literally ran up to me and almost knocked me over. And that was so wonderful because he had not been able to run like that ever. He had always had hip problems. And that's the difference with animals. If it were a deceased person, I always tell my clients not to ask me to try to connect with them for at least 6 to 9 months after they've died.
Really?
Because deceased people are not available the way that an animal is. An animal doesn't have to go through the life review and everything that we go through.
Mhm.
And so that's been a real source of comfort for many of the people I read for, being able to connect with their animal right away and to confirm that everything's all right.
Wow. That must have been a very difficult message for you to give to the
Oh,
family, you know,
yes.
that their beloved pet wanted to
Yeah.
go ahead and
Oh,
be released. So that could be heartbreaking.
yeah,
But
it was.
what a lovely gift that you gave them after he had passed and help the family, help him through his transition. We talked also a little bit about whether or not, because we discussed about how our as human beings we incarnate again
Mhm.
and learn lessons. And I did ask you and about how you felt about human beings incarnating into animals, and talk little bit about that and what your experience is with that.
My experience is that there is no crossing there, that the animals stay animals. But just because someone was a dog this time doesn't mean that they're not a deer next time, or
Right.
vice versa. But I have not run across, I've never run across any species crossing
Like,
to the
man.
other species. No, I have not. That's not been my experience.
But a domesticated animal that was a dog, a
Mhm.
family dog, could have been an eagle or
Oh,
not
sure.
a.
Sure. And even I had a reading the other day. And I can't discuss people's readings because of the
Yeah.
confidentiality, but animals just totally, they're fine. They don't care. And so it's fine if I discuss this. Anyway, I had a reading the other day with a dog who was 10 years old who had never gone to the bathroom in the house, and all of a sudden was going to the bathroom in the house.
Oh
And
my
so,
gosh.
so their keeper, I call the owners keepers because I really don't think you own anything, but their keeper contacted me and asked me to read this animal. And I was reading her and asking her, what was going on. And she was telling me she was terrified to go outside. And I was like, well, but it's not my understanding that you've been terrified your whole life. And she hadn't been. But what was happening, she was a real big dog and she was close to the end of her life. And she was remembering when she was a deer. And when
Oh.
she was a deer, she was shot when she was alone. And it was as she was older. And then as she was getting to the end stages of her life, she was starting to kind of remember that subconsciously. And that was her fear, was going outside alone.
Uh-huh.
And so I talked to her keeper and said, I think after talking to her, I said, I know this may be a hassle for you, but I believe if you will go out with her, she's going to be fine,
Uh,
because what she's afraid of is being alone. And once her person knew that, her person started going out with her, and their whole life went back to normal. It was fine. But she just needed that reassurance. And we wouldn't have known that had we not been able to talk to her about it and find out.
so that's so fascinating that the animals can have a past life regression and phobias or fears or come up the way it does with human beings and
Oh,
in our lifetimes, and
exactly.
how that continues in this lifetime. Um, I'm going back and forth on this now, but we're talking about regression. How does that affect you in your readings now with regression or your experience with regression or past life regression in your life?
Well, I love past life regression readings because I believe that they help you understand why you are who you are. Now, when I say that, let me also preface it with it's real important we live our life today.
Yes.
I mean, we don't want to live in the past. But using myself as an example, it is everything that I know about past life regression that is why we have phobias. That's why we need to find out about our past life. A phobia does not make sense. It's not logical in any way. So if you can do a past life regression, you can find out, why am I afraid of sharks? I've lived in the desert my whole life. Why am I afraid of sharks? And sure enough, we can find out. Or you can find out, why do I freeze every time I stand up to speak in public?
Mm-hmm.
You can find these things out. It's also wonderful because you can find out about karma. And you can find out whether you are in a cycle of karma right now. And then you can find out how to release that karma. That's life-changing. I mean, I have had some phobias myself, and once that I found out what they were, I was able to let go of them.
Wasn't that the shark story? Can you tell me about that? Because I thought that was like a wonderful story, and how you were able to recognize that, because you actually did not do a past life regression for yourself. Correct?
Yeah, well, no, I did not until I started realizing something's got to be wonky here. But
Yeah.
my husband and I love to snorkel. But
Yes.
I used to have to take anti-anxiety medicine before I got in the water, because I was that terrified of sharks, which is
Yes.
really pretty funny when you consider I grew up in West Texas in the desert. We did not go around an ocean. There was no reason for me to be afraid of a shark. But it's not, a phobia is not logical. This was not logical. And one of the things that my husband had noticed was, when I would snorkel, I would only look straight down, and I wouldn't look sideways. And if he was trying to get me to look at something sideways, I would turn my whole body, but I wouldn't turn my head. And I had these weird little funky things. If we were going snorkeling, I could never be the first or the last, first one in or the last one in the water, never ever. And I always had to have people around me, because if I looked up and nobody was around me, I'd go into this full-blown panic attack. Well, finally I thought, I'm a medium. Maybe this is something I need to ask about. and so I asked my guardian angel about it. And well, sure enough, there's a reason I was having a problem with that. And in a past life, hundreds of years ago, I was a little Polynesian boy, and I was just swimming like all my friends were doing out off the islands. And I was the last one out in the water, and a shark came up from the deep, from my peripheral vision, and it wasn't trying to eat me. It just took a bite out of me to check and see who I was. But I bled out. I mean, this is long before ERs or anything like that, and I bled out. And that's why I was afraid. But the amazing thing was, when I was shown this, the shark came up from the right in my peripheral vision, and it totally explained the way I hold my body all the time. It was like, oh my gosh, this is it. And once I learned that, it was like, okay, the chances of me dying the same way are like nil. And now I understand this, and now I can let it go, because even some of these things that have been with us for centuries, we have on a cellular level.
Yes.
And that is the difference in past life regression. Can I tell another little story?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I used to have this real thing about things touching my neck, and it was dry. I've actually been made fun of in my family over this. I didn't want anything touching my neck, as from my ears, from my earlobes down to my shoulders. Okay. And I was real weird about it. Like, no turtlenecks, no nothing, no chokers, no anything like that. And I finally found out that in 702, I was hanged. And I was hanged for my spiritualism. I was a young woman over in a village over in what is now Europe. And I would look at everybody when a storm was coming and say, well, the storm's coming. You better put your cows up. Or, she's going to have a boy, but she's going to have it a month early. And I had no filter. Right. And I scared the village. And finally, the village quite literally hung me. And I have been running for my spirituality for hundreds of years since then. And come to find out, that has explained why I have had 2 knee replacements and both my Achilles tendons reconstructed. And believe me, I'm not an athlete. So, I've had all this work done on my legs, but it's because it made me be still. And when I was still, that's when I listened to Spirit, and my growth exploded. And now I know I set all of this up ahead of time so that I could do this. Even Trisha dying early. Now, don't take
Yes.
this wrong. Trisha did not die early for me. Trisha
Right.
had finished what she needed to learn in Earth School, and her job was done. But part of me being her mother, ahead of time, I knew that she was going to die early. I knew the tailspin it would throw me in, and that tailspin is what woke me up. And I will be forever grateful for that coming out of it.
So everything was divine timing for you to do
Exactly.
what you're doing in this life right now,
Exactly.
and to experience what you've experienced, and to go into teaching what you know now, and sharing that
Right.
with everyone. Um, I know you are a teacher and you teach classes. You're online on the internet and also here. Can you give us a little bit of information on the classes that you are teaching, Lacey, for our listeners?
I have two 6-week series that are called Living a Life of Intention, and those are my babies. I love these series. And the first 6-week series, I teach you how to connect with your guardian angel. I cannot guarantee that you will, but if you put the work in, you will. I can promise you, because they're ready to connect with you. I teach you how to discern who you're talking to. It is it's huge. I don't even know the word to express it. It's a big deal to understand discernment.
Yeah.
It's a big deal to understand what's your imagination and what is spirit. And I do a lesson on that. I do a lesson on the archangels and the ascended masters. I do pretty much all of the first 6-week series is about connecting with your deceased loved ones and connecting with higher spirit. And the last lesson is connecting with animals. And then the second series, we get much, much deeper into your particular spiritual growth, because I do one thing on dream interpretation, I do another on karma and past lives, and it's much harder, much deeper. I don't even allow anyone into the second classes until they've done the first, because it's a real commitment, and you really unearth a lot of things. So you need to understand who you are going into that class. And then the third class I teach is learning how to read tarot cards.
So, and these are both locally and on the internet, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I have to thank you, because you've been one of the volunteers for my learning to read tarot cards.
Oh,
I've had my students reading a whole group of strangers.
they are amazing.
Well, and it's been wonderful for them, because they've gained so much confidence. It's one thing to read your friends. It's another thing to read a classmate that you've been in class with for 6 weeks. It's quite another to read one of Lacey's friends you've never met in your life, who lives clear across America. And I've got friends from Canada in this thing. And so it's been a real blessing, and I appreciate my bank of volunteers for doing that, because I don't think you know you're accurate until you get a stranger.
You know, that's true. And actually, the other thing that I have found with that is how amazing and how individualized each of the readings are that your readers have been giving. I mean, their technique and their style, it does show and it comes out. And
Yes.
that's really interesting. And there's always been something new that I've received from each of the readings. Your students are wonderful.
Oh, thank you. This has been a rocking class. I mean, it really has been a rocking class. They have worked really hard, and like I say, I think that that's one thing that I feel like I bring to the table, is I make sure that I have volunteers people can practice on. And I had somebody ask on my Facebook yesterday. They said, "How did you learn to do this, and how did you learn to be accurate?" And I said, practice, 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 because you cannot grow spiritually, and not everybody wants to be a medium. I get that, I understand that, but even speaking to your own angels, your own guides, you're never going to progress unless you do it on a daily basis and work on it. I mean, that's just part of it.
And just as you said, discernment. Many people don't know what the difference is there, and just
Exactly.
be able to realize that is a gift. So, in speaking with animals now, is there a feeling that you're getting overall or a message from most of the animals that you receive now, as to the state of how the world is right now? That came to me last night. I just thought, wow, it's a very heavy question, but that came to me.
Yeah, that's
as
well.
a
That's a fair.
question that,
That's a fair question. I don't get it from domestic animals at all.
yeah,
I mean, I don't get anything like that from the wild animals. I get it big time,
yeah,
really
yeah.
hard. And
Mhm.
basically, it's we're destroying their habitats. We're ruining our planet. People don't understand how tied we are to the animals. For every species we lose a part of ourselves because we're all connected, and that's been a really tough one, especially if I'm speaking to an African animal.
Mhm.
That's usually the worst, and not all the wild animals I speak to are not from Africa. I mean, they're from different places. Like I spoke to buffalo not long ago, and that was an amazing reading. But again, though, and the thing that Buffalo said that was so profound was the collective representative wanted to say thank you because they were very aware of all the people's efforts to bring them back. They were very
Wow.
aware of the people who are protecting herds and doing
Mhm.
selective breeding and help their breed to come back. And they're super aware of it. I mean, these aren't just, people think, oh, they're animals. No, no, no.
Right.
They're souls. They're souls. And if I've learned one thing from every animal I've ever spoken to is that we are all connected.
Yeah. Wow. So, and has there been any other messages that you've received from your guides, or anything that you wish to share with us collectively?
Well, I'll tell you the biggest thing is how loved and surrounded we are. I mean, there is just no way for me to convey to you how surrounded you are. You are never, ever alone. You are always surrounded by God, by His angels, by His guides. And like I say, it doesn't matter what your belief system is. Almost every belief system in the world believes in angels.
Yeah.
And we all have angels, and we all have these guides. And the fact that, I mean, it is humbling to me. I even asked my guardian angel one time, I said, how do you stay with me every lifetime? Because I haven't always been nice. I've been a real stinker. I've been really bad in some of my lifetimes, and not a very elevated person, not someone I would be proud to know or claim. And I'm like, how do you stay with me? Because it's so humbling. How do you stay with me? And he said, because there's always something to love.
Wow.
And if we could all get that, if we could all realize that we're all worthy of that and that we are that loved, I believe it would change the whole world. I really do.
It does, and that we're not alone. I love the idea, the premise that I have a team. I have a team that has always been with me, and when we spoke of that the other day in our conversation on Monday, it just brought back memories of that's right. I am not alone, and as you said, we have someone that we can connect with and resolve our issues with, and who's there for us and protect us at all times, and even our family and our friends, and also collectively, as one soul to another, knowing you now. I mean, the tribe, everybody is coming together. Don't you agree with that, Lacey? That the timing?
Oh, I do. Yes, and I truly feel that we are changing as a species. I really do. I feel that, especially, thank God for the younger generation who's got it, that you don't have to fit in this box, that you can live the life that you want to live, that we can raise our children the way that we see fit to raise our children. I mean, I think they're the key to the change that's coming in this world. It's just a matter of awakening, and that's one of the hard things. You have to awaken when someone is ready to awaken. We can't drag someone else with us, but we can sure be their example. After a while, people look at you and they see your peace and they want your peace. How are you getting that? How are you so happy? How is everything always going to be in your best interest? Because I believe it, because I know it's coming.
And you're living a life of this example for your children.
I sure hope
You
so.
have. Well, you have your journey that you've taken and the steps that you've taken to, as I say, come out.
Oh,
With who
well,
you
that,
are right now, right, Lacey?
yeah.
Because you're
Yes, that
claiming.
I'm claiming it. I'm naming it and claiming it. But I'll tell you, it was that's a heck of a journey.
Hmm.
And I have to realize that because a lot of my clients are not out spiritually. If you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
like they're not comfortable telling their whole family they come to a medium or that they're in spirituality classes. And hey, I've been there. I totally understand that. I totally get it.
So, and now they've accepted you. The majority of us accepted you as who you
Yeah.
are, and
Yes, the majority, and I think that the ones who haven't have just kind of fallen away.
but isn't it amazing how you're drawing more to you now that you've come out and claimed who you are? Everyone that you probably didn't think of discussing some of the things you discuss are now coming to you.
Almost.
Right? Almost.
I've still got, I've got one parent who really has a super hard time with this, but we have one shot at life, and I'm to the point that if I can't live authentically, it's not worth it for me, and so I'm not worrying about it anymore. I'm just stepping forward, and one of the things that I was told a long time ago was that God was going to bring me the people who needed me. And so I just need to sit back and accept it.
So I just wanted to make another announcement. If you're just coming on right now, you are listening to Maria Morales with her guest, Lacey Camp, on Beacon of Light Radio. And you are able to come into the chat room, Facebook chat room, with any questions. She's not taking any readings, doing any readings at this time, but if you have any questions about anything that she's talked about, or if you'd like to call in, our call-in number is 323-902-5497 for any questions. But right now, Lacey and I are having a great conversation. We're talking about her experience with mediumship and as she's an animal psychic and the classes that she teaches. And Lacey, can you tell us how our listeners can get in touch with you? You're a little bit about your website and on Facebook.
Sure. Okay, it's www.laceycamp.com. That's LACEY Camp, CAMP.com. And on Facebook, I'm Lacey Camp Spiritual Medium.
And we will also be posting a little bit later if you've missed the show, and you'll be able to get it on a replay as a SoundCloud. You'll be able to get a replay of the program. So, Lacey, I wanted to tell you, everybody, the story about Lacey's reading with my daughter Samantha. Samantha lost her pet French bulldog at the beginning of the year, and that's how I came across Lacey as an animal psychic. It was very unexpected when Chloe had passed away, and I had asked Lacey to go ahead if she could reach out to tell us, what Chloe's experience was when she passed away, because it was very unexpected and she was alone, and that was really difficult for Samantha to know that she was alone. And Lacey had she first described Chloe's personality, which Chloe is quirky. She was very spunky, and she described how Chloe was. How could she get this message, from Chloe? But that was Chloe, how you had described her, and you gave Samantha a piece of information about how Chloe's heaven was squirrels. I thought, yeah. Squirrels? Chloe, squirrels? I've never even seen her run after a squirrel. And so I had relayed that message to Samantha, and Sam said that Chloe's favorite gift was a little squirrel stuffed animal that she had as a puppy, and that she carried that little squirrel animal, that stuffed animal, around with her every time she was upset or when she was lonely or when she went to sleep. And in fact, when she had passed away, she was with the squirrel. And when she said that, I had no idea that the connection there. And Sam was just so comforted to know that, she wasn't alone, and you gave Samantha the message that, she had a good life and that she was watching over them all the time now. As a matter of fact, Chloe kept her presence going and has followed them to their other home and just, as you
Right.
said, checks in on them. So that
Right.
was comforting to know.
Well, and I'll tell you, when she told me that her heaven, because animals all have different kinds of heavens, and when she told me it was all squirrels, I thought, wow, this isn't a cat, this is a dog, this is a French bulldog. Telling me that, but that's what I got, so that's why I had to relay it, and it was so sad because I know that Samantha was so distraught that Chloe was alone, and yet Chloe was like, I knew I was dying and I was fine. I mean, I was in no pain, and and so I was happy I could bring that to you. I was really thrilled I could bring that to you.
That was lovely. So I have a question, and in the chat, it says, "Do animals have soul contracts?" Oh, I have a call. Oh, I have a call coming through.
Okay.
Hello? Hello? Caller, you're on
Hello.
the air. Hello?
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Hello. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Mary Ellen, and I am calling from New York.
Oh,
And I like what you said about like not everybody saying what their spiritual practice is, like to your family and friends.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Because I identify with that, and
Mhm.
I am like looked at my family like, oh my God, what is she into now? What voodoo is she practicing? And stuff like that. And it's just nice to know I'm not alone.
You're not alone, I promise. I think we've all touched on that. Did you have a question to Lacey about, her experiences, or Mary Ellen?
Well, personally, I have a lot of tarot cards, and I'm a Reiki master, spiritualist, and I practice in almost every form. And whenever I get readings done, or I do them myself, because I connect with animals, and like I'm an animal lover, and I'm like I've gone from an animal tolerator to a liker, but I'm not a lover of animals. I mean, but what I'm curious to why I keep on getting these messages. But I really, I love human beings. I love babies. I'm in geriatrics. I'm a nurse. I take care of people. But I'm not, I'm not an animal lover. I'm a liker. It's hard. And it's confusing to me. I feel like am I missing something, or am I resisting?
Lacey?
Well, are you okay? So let me clarify. First? Let me say you're my kind of girl, because I like everything you've been naming. So I think that's great.
Okay.
And also, my last blog I wrote was about hiding in a spiritual closet. You'll have to read it because I think you'll find it interesting. It's about that way you can learn how to find your tribe. I have some ideas that I used, and they may help you too. So are you asking why you're not an animal lover, or you're asking why you feel like you're trying to be contacted by animals? Yeah. I'm sorry.
Probably both. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm like, it puzzles me.
Mm-hmm. Have you asked? Have you asked why?
No, I haven't, because I don't know. I guess, it's just, I can say, oh, how cute. I do dog sit from, I say I have 2 surrogate Shih Tzus. My girlfriend, I'll do it for a weekend, but, I'll be darned if I'm going to have to run home to let the dog out. I like my freedom. No.
I understand. No. Right, I understand. But I would say that there's a message that you're missing there. So the next time you feel that, I would just pause, take a step back, and say, I feel this energy. What is this message? What are you trying to give to me? Because this may even be something kind of past life related or something for you. I mean, and this is just off the cuff here, but I would definitely stop and ask. And that's the biggest secret that no one ever told me for the longest. I had been seeing spirits since I was a little girl. It hadn't occurred to me to ask them what they needed. Why was I seeing you? What do you want here? And so I would say, since this is a recurring theme for you, I think that there's a message somewhere in there. And I would definitely ask, and I'll bet you're going to hear an answer.
I agree with you on that, Lacey.
It
I
must
really
be a
feel that
past
too.
life.
Yeah, there's no, there's no telling. There is absolutely no telling. They may actually even be trying to get you, since you're open, they may be trying to get a message to you to give to somebody else. So just ask, see what happens.
I wouldn't mind doing that, but no, I don't need the tying down.
We got you. We got you.
It's funny when I have to be with people and they say, "Oh, I gotta go out. I gotta go home and feed the dog or let the dog out." I'm like,
well, I would say to just pause and step back. And I have another blog post about automatic writing, and I think you should try it. And you can go into the blog section of my website, and you'll see a search tag that says automatic writing. See if that won't help you too. And otherwise, contact me by email. But I think that there's a message there, and I think that you're very close to getting it.
Okay. And I looked at you. You're from Granbury, Texas.
I am, yeah.
I have family there.
Oh my
Oh
goodness!
my gosh, that's a small world.
Yes. And believe it or not, talk about the spiritual closet. Here I am, an Irish Catholic, growing up, and my uncle that married a Baptist from Arkansas. He was in the Air Force, and he's a Baptist minister down in Granbury. So,
well, then tomorrow I'm going to be at the Granbury Paranormal Expo, and I'm betting they're not going to be attending.
No.
Isn't it amazing that they're having that there, though?
Okay.
Listen, we over 80 vendors. This is going to be a huge, huge festival on our square. We're super excited about it. We've got everybody from ghost hunters to mediums to you name it. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I just visited them, and it was like, we didn't talk about this type of stuff, but, it was very interesting, and, I know it's the Bible Belt and stuff like that, but I'm like, whoa. I didn't run into people like you when I was down there, but
well,
I'll hook up with you next time.
She landed there.
You're in the wrong place at the wrong time, but maybe next time. Thank you so much for calling.
Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It looks like we got a question in the chat room.
Right, and let's see here. The
Do
question do animals have soul
Excellent.
contracts? Can you answer that? Yes.
Yes, I can. And animals do have soul contracts. Not all of them, though. Not all of them. But there have been many animals I have talked to who literally chose their family. Like they were exactly there to be with their family. This was really interesting. I did a reading on a deceased dog, and the person who had asked me to read for him was devastated, even though she had given him up like well over 10 years ago. A lot of things had happened in her life. She had 6 kids, had to get a divorce, and could not keep up with this great big dog, and had to take it to a shelter. And for over 10 years, she had carried such grief and such guilt. And I was able to contact her dog, and this dog told me, "Oh, I'm so thankful she gave me to the shelter, because the main reason I came was for the little boy who adopted me afterwards." And she said, "I lived with him and stayed with him until I died, and I made a huge difference in his life." And it was such a gift to my client, because my client was able to let go of all that guilt and realize, animals have their own journeys just like people do. So yes, many animals have soul contracts. Some do not, but many of them do. And if you have a pet that you feel like you're so in simpatico with, and oh my gosh, this must have been it, then you're probably right. We had a cat that I had as a cat in another lifetime.
Oh my goodness,
that's
comforting.
So I mean, if you feel that, then I think there may be some validity to your feelings.
I agree with that. I totally do, and I hear that sometimes with people with their pets. It's like they're a part of. And that's why one of the reasons why I asked about, do you feel that we can cross over as a
Right.
human to an animal? And basically, they were an animal, a pet in another life that came along with us into this life. So, gosh, I can't believe it. It's now 7 o'clock right now. And this time has flown by, and you've been so delightful, Lacey. I wanted to, like, it's crazy how it's flown by. Do you have any messages or anything you'd like to say to our listeners this evening? And or let's share your website again, how they can
Okay.
contact you.
All right. It's www.laceycamp.com, LACEYCAMP.com. And on Facebook, it's Lacey Camp Spiritual Medium. And I even have a few videos, but listen, don't judge me for videos.
Yeah, you're on YouTube.
I'm on YouTube, and it's scary, but I mean, hey, if you want to go there and like me, I'd appreciate it. But I would just say, I mean, seriously, my message for everyone is to, if you're listening to this radio show, you're obviously trying to grow. You're obviously open spiritually, and kudos to you. I mean, stick to your guns, be authentic, be yourself. You will find a tribe. I know how it is. I mean, I grew up Southern Baptist for my first 21 years, and then became a Methodist, and I will tell you, I understand the trauma of going through all of that, and that's even why I started my mentoring program, because I know what it is, what it feels like when you're looking for somebody who's like you and who's been scared to death, or maybe your family doesn't, accept this. And I just want to tell you, be you. You are enough, and don't forget you're surrounded and you are loved. And if you never even look me up on Facebook, that's fine. That's the most important thing you need to hear tonight.
Oh, Lacey, it was such a pleasure having you on my program tonight and sharing your
Thank
time
you.
with me.
Thank
And
you.
I want to tell everyone good night, and thank you for coming on to our program this evening and sharing your evening with us. And we will be posting on the Facebook Beacon of Light chat room a link if you've missed this program, or if you'd like to listen to a replay. But thank you, and have a lovely evening, everyone. Signing off. This is Maria Morales on Beacon of Light Radio Show with Lacey Camp. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.